The quiet of the evening was a sharp contrast to the chaos I had witnessed in conflict zones, to the terror of war and the grief of lost comrades. But nothing prepared me for the horror that awaited me on my own doorstep. If I had driven slower, if I hadn't gotten the sense that something wasn't right, my wife might not be here with me today. I had been gone for months. The weeks of training with the reserves in Norfolk had drained me, both physically and mentally. But the drive home felt different, soothing. The truck's engine hummed as I let the window down a few inches, breathing in the evening air, fresh with the scent of grass and the promise of rain. It was the first time in weeks I wasn't thinking about drills or tactical exercises, the first time I was simply a husband driving home to his wife. On the seat beside me, I had a small velvet box with a silver bracelet inside. It was simple, nothing extravagant. Just silver, a piece I knew she would love. The street was peaceful as I approached, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow on everything. The old oak trees lined the road, casting long shadows, and the laughter of children playing drifted toward me on the breeze. Everything seemed perfect, almost too perfect. Then I saw it, a dark SUV, parked at the edge of the street, too far from the curb. No license plate. Windows blacked out. It stood out like a sore thumb in a neighborhood where everyone knew each other's cars. I slowed down, my instincts kicking in, but I forced myself to keep driving. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just paranoid after all the training, all the missions. But still, something told me to stay alert. As I turned the final corner, my house came into view. There she was, my wife, Anna. She was kneeling in the garden, the soft glow of the porch light casting a warm halo around her. She was so at ease, so peaceful, it almost made me forget the unease I'd felt moments before. The sight of her like that was the first true breath I'd taken in weeks. She had held the fort while I was away, and I had a gift for her. I eased the truck into the driveway. The sound of the engine shutting off filled the stillness. My fingers brushed against the velvet box as I gazed at her, planning to surprise her with it while she was watering her flowers. I wanted to make up for the time I'd been away, for the nights I wasn't there. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mark, a friend from my days overseas, now working as a local detective. "Welcome home, brother. Beer this weekend?" I quickly sent back a thumbs up, stuffing the phone back into my pocket. I glanced up again, only to feel that same nagging unease creep back into my chest. Anna didn't notice it at first. Her focus was on the flowers, the small tasks that made her so grounded. But I saw the SUV again. It was parked deeper under the shadow of the trees now, barely visible, as if trying to blend in. No plates, no markings, and the engine wasn't running. A voice in my head told me to call her. But I didn't. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Stepped out of the truck. The air had shifted, and the first drops of rain began to fall. I didn't notice it at first, but the tension in the air, the sudden coldness, told me the storm was near. Anna glanced up at me, her eyes lighting up with the kind of smile that made the days away worth every second. My heart skipped a beat, but before I could speak, my phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. Double quotes, "Mrs. Miller, this is the Willow Creek Homeowners Association Enforcement Division. There's a code violation at your property. We need to conduct an inspection." A code violation. Anna was confused, especially since we hadn't made any changes to the house. She pressed the speakerphone button, wiping dirt from her hands as she looked around. But the voice on the other end didn't sound like an HOA representative. It was cold, calculated, mechanical. He insisted they had to inspect her house immediately, citing some vague structural discrepancy and warning that a hold would be placed on their assets unless she complied. Anna tried to get more information, but the call abruptly ended. As the last bit of light drained from the sky, the air around her seemed to change, heavy and unsettling. Her nurse's instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. And then, just as the first drop of rain hit her wrist, she saw it. The same SUV, idling at the end of the street. Anna didn't panic, but something in her told her to retreat inside, locking the door behind her. She stayed by the window, still holding the watering can, watching the SUV's occupants carefully as they made their way up the sidewalk. 3 men. They wore nondescript clothing, but something about the way they moved made her blood run cold. She could hear them before they reached the door. Their boots on the wet gravel, their voices too quiet, too calm. When the knock came, Anna hesitated but opened the door, keeping the chain on. The man at the front was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a cheap vest that read HOA enforcement on the back. The other man, leaner, fidgeted with a clipboard, his eyes darting around. The man at the door smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. They claimed to be there to verify a structural variance, but when Anna asked for credentials, the tone changed, colder, more menacing. She was told that a warrant wasn't needed for this kind of inspection. They were just following protocol. It didn't feel right. She refused to let them inside. That's when things escalated. The door was shoved open, the chain snapping as Anna stumbled back. One of them grabbed her wrist, and the other started rifling through her purse, looking for keys. In the chaos, Anna's gift, the bracelet I had planned to give her, slipped out of her pocket and clattered to the porch step. Half buried in the mud, Anna was yanked toward the SUV. Her body jerked and twisted, but before they could force her in, she stepped on the bracelet, pinning it to the ground. I had no idea any of this was happening. Not yet. I was barely 2 minutes away, driving through the rain, still processing the unease I felt when I saw the SUV earlier. The rain was coming down heavier now. My fingers drummed lightly on the steering wheel, but all I could think about was getting home. Then I saw it. The SUV, still parked by the sycamore, the same men standing on the porch. Anna was there, barefoot, the same man holding her hair, another one pushing her toward the open trunk. My heart stopped. In an instant, everything clicked. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the truck into the driveway, cut the engine, and reached for the Glock under my jacket. I stepped out into the rain, each stride quiet, deliberate. The world around me seemed to slow down. My training kicked in, my instincts taking over. I could see Anna's eyes, the fear in them, and the man's grip on her hair. I took a few more steps, closing the distance, until I was close enough to speak, my voice calm but full of command. Let her go. The man looked over his shoulder at me, his eyes narrowing. The others turned, as if they hadn't expected me to arrive so soon. You're too late, he sneered. But I wasn't, not yet. I raised the Glock, took another step forward, and aimed low, my voice steady as I gave them a choice. Step away from her. Now. They hesitated, but I saw the shift. The taller man moved, reaching for something at his side, a knife. I didn't wait. I fired once, the shot echoing in the heavy air. He staggered back, clutching his arm. The knife fell from his hand. The second man lunged at me, but I was faster. My boot caught his knee, and he went down with a grunt. The third man, the driver, was still in the SUV, but I didn't take my eyes off the others. They were both immobilized, eyes wide with shock as they realized they were outmatched. The sound of sirens approached, but it was already too late for them. By the time the officers arrived, I had them secured, and Anna was safe. Later, when everything was sorted out, and the truth came to light, we found out the men were part of an elaborate real estate scam. They were targeting families, forging documents, and scaring people into leaving their homes. They had tried to intimidate Anna and me into handing over our property, but they didn't know who they were messing with. It wasn't just luck that I got there when I did. It was training, instinct, and the bond we shared. As the last of the suspects were carted off in cuffs, I realized how close we'd come to losing everything. Still, as we stood there, drenched from the rain, Anna's hand slipping into mine, I knew that we had survived, and we would rebuild. We didn't need the accolades, the media attention, or the offers for interviews. We just needed to go home. It would never be the same, but at least we had a chance to make it ours again.